All right. Welcome to the inaugural episode of the End Zone Oracle. We're going to be talking fantasy football today. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's going to be so much fun. So anybody that's out there listening, um, you know, throw some comments in there. We're going to be going through a lot of great stuff today. Got a lot of things to talk about. I've got my agenda here of all the things I want to go through. We're going to talk about some of the recap of this past week. We're going to look at players to start. Look at the injury reports. Who are some underrated guys that are out there? Some people with injuries that you have to kind of keep an eye on for this coming week's games. We got first game tomorrow night with Washington against Green Bay. So let me see. We're also gonna hopefully Josh Ritter will be able to join us. He's been dealing with some internet issues at his home, so he's going to be joining us from his phone. But we're going to look at some guys to look at on the waiver wire. Do you want to push the panic button, or do you want to exercise a little bit of patience when it comes to players that had a rough first week? Thinking about the Cincinnati Bengals, who seem to start out slow every season. So do you want to have is it time to panic with guys like Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, or you just want to be patient? We're going to look at some of the guys who I think will be good players to sneak into your lineup this week because of favorable matchups just like I said, favorable matchups that are going to be huge. And then injury concerns, right? If there's a starter that's injured, somebody that's banged up, or there's a injury on the defensive side of the ball for a team, who are some of those guys that you're going to want to kind of target there? We're going to look at trades. Hopefully, people will be around to throw in some trades that they want to explore, and we'll give you Josh or I, if Josh is able to get back on, we'll give you some information about how to, or what we would do in those situations. When it comes to trade. So again, throw those in there. And then we're going to, like I said, we're going to look at the matchups and see which ones are going to be some of those key matchups to look at, because we've got some pretty exciting games this weekend. Obviously, there's always good games in the NFL. But before we get into all of that, I really want to, again, make sure that you know how to find me around on social media. So again, I'm Glenn Ritter, Minnesota insider for IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. So you can find me at IESR_Minnesota on X. My personal handle on X is Gritter13. And then I'm also on TikTok. You can just find me as IESR Minnesota. So I always try to post videos, breakdowns of the Vikings, especially. So after that huge game this past weekend on Monday night, that was a great comeback. Ugly first three quarters, but love the ending to it. So I'm gonna hopefully I won't spend too much time thinking about that, but if you see a smile on my face, I'm thinking about that. So let's kind of jump in first. I'm going to talk about kind of what's coming up this week, right? So I looked at all of the injuries from the weekend, because there were a number, like for example, George Kittle is going to be he's placed on injured reserve, and it's going to be out a minimum of 4 weeks. So if you have George Kittle, or I think even Brock Purdy got banged up in that game too for San Francisco, so they're kind of a little on the shallow side when it comes to receiver depth and things like that. So one of the players that I have on multiple teams in all my leagues is Ricky Pearsall. I felt like this was going to be a good year for him. He showed up pretty well over the weekend. I think he had over 100 yards receiving for the Niners. Was a good compliment to Christian McCaffrey. They were able to get him some good targets in that 17-13 win over Seattle. So there's going to be, we're going to talk a little bit about some of those guys. I think some of the top players that I think we all saw last weekend that we all enjoyed if they were on your team. Quarterback, we've got, obviously Josh Allen, superstar player. He's going to be somebody that's in your lineup every single week. But there's the next two scorers in most scoring formats. Again, it depends on the scoring format for your league. Because for me, all three of my leagues are completely different with how the scoring is done. I've got one league that's a half-point PPR, another one that's a full-point PPR, another one that is almost only scoring, only on touchdowns. Running backs, receivers only get a few points if they hit 100 yards rushing or receiving, or quarterbacks get some points if they get 300 yards rushing and receiving. So it's really low scoring in that kind of a scenario. But again, some of those top quarterbacks were in most leagues, were Josh Allen, Josh Fields, and Daniel Jones, which, again, I don't think anybody had Daniel Jones in their lineups or even on their rosters. We'll talk maybe a little bit about that. Is that a trend, or is that a mirage, right? Is that something that's sustainable? So is that somebody that you want to pick up? I gotta kind of keep looking at my notes here. Sorry. But that's one of those where it's like, which of those guys would you want to add to your roster if you didn't already do it? Because usually Tuesday night is the waiver wire time when waiver claims are run through. But to me, Josh Fields should be one that you would add to your roster. Gives you great yardage on the ground, and he actually passed pretty well against what I think is usually a pretty solid Pittsburgh Steelers defense. So definitely somebody that I think you should have on your roster. Daniel Jones, I think that's more of a fluke thing, right? I mean, he went off against Miami, but I'm hoping that's more of I'm guessing that's going to be more of a mirage than a trend. But as far as some of the guys that really disappointed this week from the quarterback position, I really wanted to look at the guys that would likely be drafted to be a starting quarterback. And when you have, three of these guys, from what I saw in most leagues, were three of the lower scoring starting quarterbacks. There you have guys like Joe Burrow, Dak Prescott, CJ Stroud. They all had really rough weeks. And again, when I think about are these guys going to continue that trend? Joe Burrow, no, you're not going to give up on him, right? But if you were to, I don't know, if you're able to pick up a Josh Fields, knowing he's going to be going against, where is he here? Well, he's going up against the Bills, so they're going to be down. They're going to be throwing a lot. He'll be running a lot. He could probably put up some good numbers. Probably not going to win the game, but again, fantasy football isn't about the player actually winning the game that they're playing in. It's about getting points, right? So he would be somebody that I would consider, if I had both of them on my roster, I would consider starting Josh Fields over Joe Burrow. Cincinnati, they're playing the Jaguars. Not a great defense, but I think, man, Joe Burrow has some of the slowest starts to a season. I wish Josh was on here because I'd want to just kind of banter back and forth with him about this. But when I think back to last year's opening week game for Cincinnati, they were playing the New England Patriots. And the New England Patriots, going into that game, were viewed as one of the worst teams in the NFL. So, I think that when they lost, like the number of people that were in survivor pools that picked Cincinnati to win that game last year, and when they lost to New England, it knocked out 50% of participants in that ESPN league that I was in. And now this year, they squeak by Cleveland. you got to come into the season, ready to play. I don't know if it's coaching, if it's whatever, playing down to the opponents, but that's one thing where people gotta you gotta come out to play week one, right? You're in the NFL. Anyway, so when it comes to other players that had good weeks, as far as the running back position, it's the usual suspects: Derrick Henry, Bijan Robinson, Christian McCaffrey, top three scoring players in pretty much every league. Some of those guys that I thought really disappointed, again, players that were drafted to be potentially starters on your team, guys like Kenneth Walker in Seattle, pretty low scoring. Isaiah Pacheco didn't do much against the Chargers on Friday night, and then Ramondre Stevenson. Again, those are all guys. Walker, to me especially, should be somebody that would perform a little bit better. Looking at the wide receiver position, the top three that I've seen in most all of the scoring leagues: Zay Flowers, Keon Coleman, and Quentin Johnson. Again, not necessarily household names. I think most people, I had Keon Coleman on a couple of my teams because playing in Pittsburgh, playing for the Bills, they're going to be putting up a lot of points. But Quentin Johnson, last year with all of his drop issues, he would definitely be somebody that I would think about adding to my roster. That right there is a waiver wire pickup guy that you should be looking at. As far as the guys that really disappointed, AJ Brown, how do you get like one catch for I don't know, 7 yards, something like that? I think it was what it was. I mean, he should be a much bigger part of their offense. So that was a tough one. Rashad Bateman and then Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy got hurt early on in that the game against the Chargers, never came back. I think he's probably going to be out for a bit. Looks like when I looked at the injury reports, he did not practice today. So I think he's kind of, that might be somebody to avoid. And if he's on your roster, if you got an injured reserve spot, you can probably put him in there. Same thing with George Kittle. Those are some of the guys that I would look at doing that if you can. But let's see. Let me look at some of the other injuries that took place, or guys that are battling injuries. Because we've got, let's see. I think the biggest matchup of the week appears to be the 4 o'clock game, the Eagles against Kansas City. And to me, that's one where, again, it should be a fairly exciting game. Should be fairly high scoring, I would imagine. But we've got some guys in there that are beat up. Dallas Goedert didn't practice today. Again, same thing with Xavier Worthy. So, who are those guys that are going to potentially step up in place there? Is that mean going to be a bigger share for AJ Brown and Devontae Smith? Because Devontae Smith didn't really do a lot catching the ball up against for the Eagles either. So, let's see some of the other guys that are dealing with some injuries. I always like to look at not just offensive players, but offensive linemen, especially if you've got a running back for that particular team. So when I look at some teams like Green Bay, right? Both Aaron Banks and Zach Tom, two pretty good starting offensive linemen for them, didn't practice today. So is that going to impact your Josh Jacobs, right? The backup offensive linemen are backup for a reason, right? So, maybe Josh Jacobs drops on your list of players to start, or you have him be look at him as more of an RB2 versus an RB1 on your team. Let's see. Look at some of the other ones. Another one for Baltimore, Patrick Ricard. He's not going to put up many points as the blocking back or offensive lineman with a running back number because he's just a beast. Anyway, I think he's somebody that helps both in the passing game and in the running game. But he didn't practice today at all either. So we got some guys like that. Anyway, let's see here. And again, please throw in any questions you might have, trade things, or just players that you think are going to be great this week. I want to hear what you got to say. I'll touch base with you on all of those. I really want to see who's out there, see who's watching our inaugural episode here of the End Zone Oracle. Anyway, but let me go to another little segment here that we put in, and this kind of goes into that quarterback section that I was talking about earlier, of that start, sit, and quit. So I was thinking about 3 quarterbacks, and I kind of touched on all 3 of them already in the show here. So for me, a start that I would have would be Josh Fields. He's a new player in New York. I think him playing at home against the Bills, with his home fans there, I think he'll be fairly solid. I know that let me look at my injury list. I know the Bills have some guys that are banged up on both offensive and defensive sides of the ball. I think mainly the one that I remember seeing was, let's see here. Let's go look at that. Well, the big one for the Bills is Dawson Knox is limited, but that's more on the offensive side of the ball. But on the defensive side, let me look at those real quick. There we go. So defensively, you've got guys like Shaq Thompson, Greg Rousseau, Tre'Davious White, all being limited in practice. So I think that the offense for the Jets could be fairly solid. I think probably I would say it seems like Breece Hall had a pretty solid game, and I would expect him to get the ball quite a bit. I think they're going to focus a lot on running the ball, trying to keep it out of Josh Allen's hands. So I think, but Josh Fields is going to be part of that running him. As far as a sit for the quarterback, again, I mentioned him earlier, Joe Burrow. I would sit him. May sound controversial because he's throwing to Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and he's got Chase Brown out of the backfield. But until they get into sync, I think you got to kind of hedge your bets a bit, get them on your bench, and if you there's a number of quarterbacks out there that I think will be able to put up equivalent points, if not more, than Joe Burrow. Obviously, you don't want to be the guy that has Joe Burrow sitting on your bench when he throws for 5 touchdown passes. I just don't see that happening this week against the Jaguars. Miami, you would think that if anybody could throw against the Jaguars, sorry, not Miami. Well, they were playing Carolina. So Carolina, I think Ted McMillan did pretty well, but nobody else really caught anything for them. So I think that they'll be able to hold their own against the Bengals. But maybe I'm overestimating the Jaguars. But if I am, let me hear it. Throw it in the comments there. And then the guy that I would quit, CJ Stroud. In fact, I did drop him in one of my leagues. He was my backup quarterback behind Baker Mayfield in another league, or in one of my leagues, not the IESR league. And yeah, I dropped him because Josh Fields was available, picked him up. And so now I've got Baker Mayfield and Josh Fields to go this week. So I haven't decided which one I'm going to start, but we'll see. Anyway, all right, let's take a quick break here. And we'll come back. You're watching the End Zone Oracle here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
IE Sports Radio fans, this show is brought to you by Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Planet Jerky is the official jerky of the 2022 California League champion Lake Elsinore Storm. single-A affiliate of the San Diego Padres. This all brisket jerky has gluten-free options, contains no MSG, no sodium nitrate, is low in sugar, and high in protein. Go to their website at planetjerky.net and follow them on Instagram at Planet Jerky. Planet Jerky, the jerky that's on a whole other planet.
Rise and shine. It's 4 a.m. The stars are still out. The sun is beneath the horizon, but it's time to punch in and go to work. The comfort of your warm-ups turns into the grinding out of your reps as the clinking and the clanking of the plates create a symphony of euphoria. There's no other feeling like it. Earn it, burn it, and take what's yours. IE Sports Radio has proudly partnered with Vital Apparel, a brand that not only fits great, but also promotes and donates to mental health research. Use our code IESR to get 15% off their comfortable and inspiring gym wear and help them on their amazing journey to support mental health. Go hard, take part in your iron therapy, and be strong. Because when your mental health is as strong as you are, there's no telling how far you'll go.
All right. Welcome back, everybody, here to the End Zone Oracle. Again, please make sure you check out our sponsors, Planet Jerky Premium Brisket Beef Jerky. Absolutely fantastic product. Always have to keep a couple of bags around. So actually, I think I need to order some more. Got to place that order tonight to get a couple of more bags. I always have one at work and one in my pantry here at home. But again, welcome back. Make sure you check out Vital Apparel as well. If you need some workout gear, great comfortable stuff, and some of the proceeds go to help mental health issues in this country. So definitely great company to work with. Let's talk a little bit about the waiver wire. Some of the guys to target when it comes to the waiver wire this week. If you haven't already picked somebody up, some of the guys that, like I mentioned, that I targeted. Your Justin Fields. Sorry, I think I was calling him Josh in the last segment. My bad. That's awful. It's Justin Fields. Juwan Johnson, who nobody picked up or really drafted any Saints players in most of my leagues outside of Alvin Kamara. But he had a really good week as the starting tight end for the Saints. So when you kind of think about that, that's kind of a streaming type of play to go with. The other streaming thing to look at is defenses. This week I picked up the Rams defense because I like their matchup. Let me see, because they are playing. They're playing the Titans, so in Tennessee. I just don't have a whole lot of faith in Cam Ward. You got some guys like Jared Verse and those guys with the Rams. They got some really good defensive players. So depending on the scoring of your league, give sacks and holding teams to a certain number of points. I think that's always a good route to go. I would also say whoever's playing the Saints would probably be a team that would have a defense would play pretty well in that kind of a scenario. So Those are a couple of the guys that I would look at. Other players that I think stepped up really well. I don't know that they went undrafted in most leagues, but Ricky Pearsall and Emeka Ibuka. Both guys that I tried to target during my drafts because I really had a lot of faith in them coming into the season. And Ibuka was, in fact, he is somebody that I do have in all three of my leagues. And I started in all three of my leagues in week one. And it totally paid off with those 2 touchdown catches for the Buccaneers was fantastic. Ricky Pearsall, I think, is going to do really well in San Francisco as well. He really had a good end of the 2024 season. So seeing him come in this year and step up is not surprising to me. And with George Kittle being out, I don't know that there's going to be a whole lot of other competition for targets outside of Christian McCaffrey. So if you've got Christian McCaffrey, he's obviously a every week starter. Although he did scare the heck out of me. Did anybody else get scared when he was listed as questionable for the game on Sunday? Because it brought up a lot of bad memories from last year when I picked him first overall in one of my leagues and found out right before game time on Monday night that he was not going to be playing. Had no idea he was injured. Really wasn't talked about anywhere. And then all of a sudden, I had to scramble and pick up Jordan Mason. Thankfully, I did. Was able to start him in that spot. But it was one of those things where it's like, come on, what's going on? And anyway, I did go into panic mode. I moved him from my running back to my flex spot because if you get the word later on that on Sunday that he's not going to be able to play, well then, I could put in a wide receiver for him or tight end, or whoever. I could always go to somebody else from a different position rather than having to find a running back to take a spot. Although I did also make that move to pick up Brian Robinson Jr. So when we talk about waiver wire, that's somebody that I would recommend to every Christian McCaffrey owner. Pick up Brian Robinson Jr. Brian Robinson Jr. Yeah. After he got traded from Washington to San Francisco, I think he's that main backup there. And hopefully he can do what Jordan Mason did and Isaac Guerrero did last year for the Niners. They seem to be a team that can always pretty much throw anybody in at running back because of that Mike Shanahan offense and the blocking system. They really know how to get production out of their running backs. So I would definitely look at some of those guys. I'm trying to think of other wide receivers. So as I mentioned, some of the wide receivers that did really well. Quentin Johnson, if he's available, he's worth picking up. He's shown during that game against the Chiefs that he can actually hang on to the ball. He was plagued by drops so much in the past. Last 2 seasons, really, that Herbert just wouldn't throw him the ball after a while because it was such a hit and miss whether he was going to actually catch the ball. So I would definitely say he'd be somebody you target. Keon Coleman looks to be the guy for Josh Allen especially in the red zone. I think he's somebody that they really target there. As far as Hollywood Brown, if he somehow went undrafted, would definitely be somebody that I would pick up because with Worthy and Kelsey being banged up a little bit, and maybe Worthy more than Kelsey, I guess, but because I didn't see Kelsey on the injury report for Kansas City, but when it comes to wide receiver targets, they're going to want to throw the ball down the field. And I think Worthy is the guy that would typically get those targets, but Hollywood Brown, what do you have? 10 catches against the Chargers. And that I don't see that slowing down at all. So definitely somebody there that, like I said, if he's available in your league, go for it. Try and add him. Any other players that you, anybody out there thinking that you team should target when it comes to the waiver wire? Usually this is kind of the week where those surprise players pop up and end up winning teams championships down the road. When you find somebody that kind of comes up out of nowhere, if Jordan Mason is not in somebody's lineup or on somebody's roster, I would definitely pick him up. The way he looked on Monday night, I feel like, unless it's a PPR league, but I think Aaron Jones is going to be the guy that's catching passes out of the backfield, and Jordan Mason's going to be the primary ball carrier for the Vikings. They're going to be both listed as starters, but the way that Aaron Jones was bottled up, but Jordan Mason was able to break off and get some good runs up the middle was huge. And I think that's going to be the direction that the Vikings are going to want to go. So I would say that would be somebody that I would really try to pick up and try to get into your lineup on a pretty consistent basis as a RB2 or in a flex position, just because I think he's got, if there's going to be a goal line touchdown, it's going to be Jordan Mason that's scoring it, unless JJ McCarthy happens to run it in like he did in the fourth quarter on Monday night. So those are some of the waiver wire people that I would look towards. How about panic button or patience? So when I think about this, are there guys out there that when you think about some of the players that were supposed to be pretty big players this year, looking at tight ends, right? When I look at the top three were Juwan Jennings, Brock Bowers, and Tyler Warren in most scoring leagues. Again, it depends on the scoring for your league in general, but those were kind of the top three. I think Tyler Warren wasn't necessarily somebody that everybody was clamoring for. I did happen to draft him in the IESR league, which was nice, and that was a good. I was fortunate to get him fairly late in the draft and be able to start him, and he did put up some pretty good numbers for me, and I expect that to continue this year, just because I think Daniel Jones, if he wants to be successful, it's going to be short passes, and that's how they're going to try to win games. But when you think about some of the other guys, Mark Andrews, again, somebody last year who I had in one of my leagues that really got off to a slow start. But that was because Isaiah Likely was stealing all the targets, scoring all the touchdowns. Isaiah Likely's hurt, and Mark Andrews had one catch. That's just ridiculous. I mean, that shouldn't be happening. I think one catch for 5 yards, if I remember right. You need more production out of a guy like Mark Andrews to start out the year, especially considering a lot of times most leagues that's tight end has a mandatory tight end on the roster. You're going to be trying to draft one and do a streaming option for the bye week. If your main guy gets one catch for 5 yards in a game where 81 points were scored, that's a problem. So that's one where I'm more of in a panic mode there. I mean, you can put him on your bench if you've got a roster spot, but I would look for a long-term replacement there, which again could be Tyler Warren if he's available. I think most leagues he's typically been drafted, but Colston Loveland I think is going to be getting a lot more attention in Chicago. One of the guys that I thought would do better, but really didn't, and was one of the three worst performers, was Evan Ingram in Denver. Although that's one where I would probably go with patience rather than a panic button, just because I think he's going to do pretty well with Bo Nix throwing him the ball. And the way that Sean Payton runs the offense and runs the team, I think he'll get some good he'll put up some good numbers this year. Hopefully that takes a step up because he was, I think, one of the worst. And same thing with TJ Hawkinson. TJ Hawkinson didn't put up many points, but nobody really did for the Vikings. And then it really wasn't until the fourth quarter, once anybody started getting the ball. And that was Justin Jefferson finally catching some passes. Aaron Jones obviously had that touchdown reception where he beat the linebacker to the end zone, and JJ just dropped the ball over the defender and scored that touchdown. It was awesome. But Hawkinson had a great block on JJ McCarthy's touchdown run. Don't get any points for that though. So that's another one where when I think about players that are didn't put up good numbers in week one, I think you can probably be a little bit more patient with them. So let's see. So the fantasy fortune teller. Ooh. Okay. So as I'm thinking about some guys that actually, you know what? Let's go back to the patience or panic button. I was going to ask Josh about this, but unfortunately, like I said, he's having some technical difficulties. His internet is down at home and was trying to go on with his phone earlier, but that did not work. The Miami Dolphins. That is one where I would push the panic button. Tua, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill. I just don't know that they're going to be able to come back together. I mean, that game against Indianapolis was ugly. I mean, I don't know how on earth you can beat 33-8 by a Daniel Jones led Indianapolis Colts. You got to give credit to the Colts because they played the game and they won. But that team just screams they're in disarray. They're just not a cohesive team. So like when it comes to, when I was looking at the injury report, they noted that Jalen Waddle was limited in practice, but I like to think maybe that didn't have a whole lot to do with it. Any injury is just anyway. But again, so going back to some of the players to look at that I think will continue to step up. Some of the guys I already mentioned with Emeka Egbuka, Ricky Pearsall, Justin Fields. I think JJ McCarthy would be somebody that you could add as a streaming option for your starting quarterback to be the backup, because he could be the next Brock Purdy, where he's just on a rookie contract and just finds a way to get all of the great talent around him the ball. I mean, he was one of the top scoring quarterbacks in some leagues with the 2 touchdown passes and the rushing touchdown for the Vikings. All of them were pretty much in the fourth quarter. Anyway, but those would be some players that I would target. And again, some that you can get off the waiver wire. But those are some of those that I think will have a good bounce back. I think with patience or panic. I think you got to be patient with the Detroit Lions players. Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jameson Williams, Jahmyr Gibbs did not do very well. Jared Goff did not do very well against Green Bay. 2 reasons for that, in my opinion. Number one, Green Bay's defense is pretty dang good. They do have some good players, and as a Vikings fan, that absolutely kills me to say, but they did play really, really well. Part of the reason why they played so well, though, was the disarray that the Detroit Lions offensive line was in. When you lose your starting center in Frank Ragnow, and you move your starting right guard into play center, and then you had, I think, Christian Mahogany is a second-year player, and then your rookie Tate Ratledge in as your right guard. That creates an opportunity for defenses to attack, and that's what Green Bay did. They really wore down and wore out those offensive linemen. And now with Zach Tom and going off on a different team. I don't know why I was thinking about that. But I guess when you think about it, Detroit's going to bounce back against Chicago. Right? They're playing at home. I think Jahmyr Gibbs is going to have a bounce back week. I think he's going to take that one personally. I think the offensive line is going to come together as a cohesive unit, or a little bit better anyway as a unit this week with Penei Sewell and Taylor Decker on the outside. Although Taylor Decker looks like did not practice. Same thing with Jack Campbell. So hopefully Taylor Decker is able to go on Sunday. But I think Detroit is going to bounce back big time. I think Jared Goff's going to have a better game, and same with Jahmyr Gibbs. And Amon-Ra St. Brown caught a number of passes. So again, it depends on your scoring league. He might have had a decent week if it's a PPR league because he catches a lot of balls. But as far as getting in the end zone or a lot of yards, not really a lot there. So anyway, let's take one more quick break. We'll be back in just a couple of minutes. Again, you're watching the End Zone Oracle here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports.
For the last 10 years, IE Sports Radio has been bringing you amazing content ranging from interviewing legendary athletes, coaches, and other authorized media personnel to building tailor-made shows dedicated to all major sports cities around the country. Make sure to follow us at IE Sports Radio on X, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and YouTube to keep up with the latest in sports and with all of our shows. Also, make sure to check out our daily updated website at iesportsradio.com. At iesportsradio.com, you can see our daily show schedule and check out all of our show pages with personal bios to learn a little bit more about each of our awesome hosts. In addition to our show pages, you can catch the iSports Radio blog, Hall of Fame, Fans of the Month page, and our merchandise shop including t-shirts, tank tops, caps, long sleeves, hoodies, and more. For now over a decade here at IE Sports Radio, we've continued to be by the fans, for the fans, and we thank you all for your support and for making IE Sports Radio your direct feed for all that is sports.
All right. Welcome back here. Actually, you know what? Yeah. Let me take down that banner here real quick. Welcome back to the End Zone Oracle here on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. All right. I was hoping that people would throw in some trade offers that they've seen or got proposed to them to see whether you would swipe right or swipe left. And unfortunately, nobody has chimed in with any trade offers. So I'll kind of go up to the next section and just talk about some the matchup magic, some of the great matchups that we've got this week. Again, I think tomorrow night's game is going to be electric. Washington against Green Bay. I'm going to be just so excited to see how Jaden Daniels does against the Green Bay Packers defense, the revamped defense with Micah Parsons. I was surprised. I didn't expect Green Bay's defense to be that solid, but they were attacking. They really shut down Detroit. So seeing that tomorrow is going to be interesting. It's always kind of a hit and miss of like, okay, so when Green Bay scores, who's going to score? Is it going to be Jaden Reed? Is it going to be Romeo Doubs? Is it going to be Tucker Kraft? Is it going to be Josh Jacobs? Is Jordan Love going to run the ball in? That's always nobody knows. Nobody can actually predict which of those guys are going to score. So if you ever have, like I had again, Jaden Reed in one of my leagues last year. When I didn't start him, he would score like 2 touchdowns on, end around plays. And when I did start him, he would catch 2 balls for 10 yards. So it's either feast or famine with guys like that. I think Romeo Doubs is probably a little bit more dependable because I think he is probably the most reliable target for Jordan Love this year, or at this point right now with Matthew Golden a little bit banged up. I think he got dinged up a little bit during that game. Didn't really have a lot of catches, but he's going to get some. He's going to get some targets, but he's not. It doesn't seem like he's going to be stepping in as seamlessly as Emeka Egbuka did. Egbuka, I mean, he stepped in with Chris Godwin out and came in like a polished receiver, and I think is going to have the better rookie year than Matthew Golden until for the time being, anyway. I know that they love him in Green Bay, but it's going to take time to build that kind of a relationship and cohesion with Jordan Love, especially when it's a grab bag of guys that go off every single week. Sometimes it's, like I said, sometimes Jaden Reed, sometimes Josh Jacobs, sometimes it's Romeo Doubs, sometimes it's Tucker Kraft. Christian Watson when he's healthy. Who knows if that's ever going to happen again, though. Anyway, but that's one of those games this week that I really like. And then I think, what was the other one I was looking at? I think the one that's going to be very fairly high scoring is probably the Bills and Jets. I think Jets are going to have a hard time slowing down the Bills. I mean, Josh Allen is going to have, I think he's going to continue to put up great numbers. He's going to have another MVP type of season. I think Keon Coleman's going to be the major beneficiary of that because, I think he's going to catch a lot of balls there in Buffalo. James Cook, he'll obviously get a good number of carries, but I don't know. That's one of those things where I think it's going to be high scoring because I think both teams are going to be able to score. When you've got the Steelers and Jets putting up 66 points combined, that's pretty amazing because both of those teams really are supposed to have fairly solid defenses. So if they're able to both put up those kinds of numbers, that just bodes well for us in fantasy football, that we're going to have players in those games that are going to be putting up some good points. And then actually, the matchup of the week, I had it started here too, and I completely looked past it, and that's the Eagles against Chiefs, right? Rematch of last year's Super Bowl. That one's good. They're in Kansas City, so we'll see how the Eagles do on the road. But they always seem to travel pretty well. Which defense is gonna show up? Both of them did pretty well in their defense. Did pretty well in their first week. Although it was surprising to see how much the Giants were able to do this past week. So when I think about that, they're playing Dallas this week. So I think Dallas could probably score a lot of points there too. But if it was me, that Eagles Kansas City game will also be a pretty high scoring game this week too. So let's talk about the wheel of misfortune, right? So kind of thinking there of like just who got whoever drafted Xavier Worthy, right? Expecting him to be the player for Kansas City, the deep threat. He was really good last year. Scored a lot of touchdowns. Got a lot of yards. They found a way to give him the ball in space at full speed. Goes down with an injury early in the game. So those are the things like you got to throw your hands up and be like, oh my gosh, can't believe I did that happened. For me personally, the one thing that absolutely killed me this past weekend was my boneheaded decision to start Omarion Hampton in my one of my flex spots over James Conner going against the Saints. I started him on Friday night, didn't necessarily look at my bets or really think about the matchup the Cardinals had. And then I'm sitting there on Sunday morning going, man, that was just a boneheaded move. James Conner deserved to be in the lineup going against the Saints. And I ended up losing by about actually 4 points. I lost by a little bit more than 4 points, if I remember right. And the difference between what Omarion Hampton scored in that league and what James Conner scored was 6 points. That cost me a win. So it happens to all of us, even the end zone oracle here. We all make mistakes, but you got to learn from them. And that's the thing is like I always feel like I can draft a really good team, but when it comes to making lineup decisions, I need to have somebody else make the decisions because I overthink it or like, oh, well, I can't bench the number one running back for the Chargers. Because we knew that he was going to be handed the job. He's got Jim Harbaugh running the offense and calling the plays and force feeding him the ball. But then when I think about it and say, okay, wait, Rashawn Slater's also out. Like he injured himself in training camps, out for the whole year. So their offensive line isn't going to be as solid as what they should have been. So sometimes you got to take those things into consideration. That's the reason I always like to look at the offensive line injury reports too. Because that impacts how your team's position players play. Same thing with the defensive injuries. When I think about Jack Campbell being where he didn't practice this week for Detroit, does that mean that DeAndre Swift would potentially be a better play this week, or Colston Loveland for Chicago? I mean, Campbell's a pretty big part of the Detroit defense. Those are some of those things that you always want to look at too. So, let's see. One thing that I was I'm going to put in here. There's a take a chance on me players. So I think about it, these are guys that are really under the radar types of guys that you might want to put into your lineup in a pinch. And one guy that I was talking to Josh about before I went on was Robert Tonjes. He's a tight end. Sorry, Jake Tonjes, tight end for the San Francisco 49ers. With George Kittle being out, he's listed as actually the third tight end on the team behind Luke Farrell, but I think Luke Farrell is probably more of a blocking tight end, although I don't know that for sure. If there's a Niners fan out there that can correct me, I would really appreciate that. But I think he would be somebody that you could potentially plug and play in a tight end spot if you're in a spot where you had George Kittle, because who wouldn't draft George Kittle? He is a perennial top 5 tight end every single year. You draft him, put him in your lineup, forget about it. You don't really always need to have a backup on your roster when you've got a guy like that to start, where you don't have to think, oh, what's the matchup? No, plug and play. You get him in there. Well, now he's going to be out for at least 4 weeks. So you're going to need to be searching around. That could be somebody in a pinch that you could potentially start and pick up. And maybe he becomes a more regular player with the team then as well. You never know, because he did score a touchdown against Seattle. He had 3 catches for 15 yards, so it's not like he totally went off. But George Kittle had 4 catches for 25 yards and a touchdown. Tom just got all 3 of his targets, and would definitely be somebody that you could take a chance on. I'll throw Josh's player in here because he's obviously not going to be able to get on, and he told me about it. And that his player that he thinks should be talked about and potentially added to rosters and thrown into a lineup would be Harold Fannin, tight end, wide receiver, big receiving tight end or wide receiver. No, he's a tight end. He's a rookie. He caught a record number of passes as a senior. I can't remember where he went to school, but he was just one of those players that everybody's like, oh, he's a great receiver. He's a great receiver. So I believe he's with the Browns, is what Josh mentioned, because I forgot who had drafted him. But I did remember the name when he told me. So I think he's somebody that would definitely be somebody to take a chance on, kind of an under the radar player. So we'll kind of keep that as a segment here to kind of close out our shows every week. So let's see. So just in closing, too bad again that people weren't able to jump on and throw in any of their comments, but I always like to hear about any of those close wins or close losses. Like I mentioned, the one that killed me was starting Omarion Hampton over James Conner. I was kind of thinking that maybe this you don't want a rookie running back has a tendency of when they splash big, right? And you never want that splash to happen when he's on your bench. But at the same time, it's all about winning the game. So sometimes you got to go with those some more experienced players at the beginning of the season rather than those rookies. Although it did pay off for me to start Emeka Egbuka. So I got to take the good with the bad when it comes to starting rookies, I guess. But anyway, so thanks for tuning in, everybody. And we'll be back Wednesday next week, the End Zone Oracle again, with myself, Glenn Ritter, and Josh Ritter will be back. Hopefully his internet will be back on at that time. And if you want to follow Josh, he's a great follow. Josh isn't here to talk about himself. And just so you know, we're not related. We just have the same last name. Anyway, Josh is a Miami Dolphins fan, Oregon Ducks fan, lives in California, the Phoenix Suns fan, and I think North Carolina too. Very eclectic, covers a lot of different teams, but is a sports fanatic just like myself and everybody else here on IE Sports Radio. So definitely check him out. He's at Josh Ritter 13 on X, and on TikTok it's Josh.Ritter57. You'll be able to check him out. He's got great videos he puts up all the time. Like I said, huge Miami Dolphins fan, has been in mourning this week after watching that game against the Colts. So definitely check him out though. Maybe any views will cheer him up. Maybe give him a hard time about those Dolphins, because I think that's another one too. I think his career might be on the downslide. So again, thanks so much for tuning in. We'll be back, and I'm hoping that Josh's internet will be back up working next week, and he can join me side by side here on the End Zone Oracle on IE Sports Radio, your direct feed for all that is sports. See you in a week, guys.